I'm going to lump these next two guys together because I put them in a similar place. Josh Paschal, and he comes in drafted behind Hutch, who plays the same position. We already have Okwara. We have a little bit of depth there, just not a high end of talent. I want to
He
say,
can play
bottom of the
along the
league in
line,
sacks. He can, and Okwara might play a little bit standing up. They're going to move guys around. I need to see, especially his mid-second round pick that I think was a bit of a reach with who was on the board. I need to see him solidify himself as your third pass rushing option behind Hutch and Okwara. That's what I need. You've got, and listen, it might end up tougher than it even looks because maybe someone else comes up that we're not expecting. So he's got to justify that pick. I want to see him solidify himself as that. He doesn't have to start, but he's got to be that third pass rushing option. And maybe he moves inside on pass rushing downs, or maybe we have versatility there. And a lot of it depends on the fronts and the looks that we use. But that's what I want to see from him. I want to see something similar with Kerby Joseph. I actually have higher hopes for Kerby Joseph. I think he can absolutely start in this league. I genuinely liked that pick. It was there was a player or two I liked a little better at the spot on the board in the draft because there were some guys I really loved. But Kerby Joseph was one of my favorite picks that we made this draft, outside of the obvious, like Aiden Hutchinson, of course.
Sure.
He can be a starter. Now, it's rookie year. You're playing as a DB. It's not corner, but there's still a lot to, again, become that third safety option. That's my goal for you. By the end of the season, become that third option.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Matt and I on Straight Shooting, Matt kept saying that he could play corner or safety, but I think in the NFL he's going to strictly be a safety.
I do not want him playing corner. Listen, I will never underestimate a team's ability to boggle players. Like, they bungle them and misuse them all the time. It happens. To me, he's a safety all the way. I wouldn't at all, not even in nickel. There's just no reason for it.
And you bring up nickel, but that's an interesting point because they talked about changing their defensive scheme to a 4-2-5, which is going to put 5 DBs on the field.
Let's be real. In the modern NFL right now, 4-2-5 is really your base defense.
For sure,
you run that's nickel. That's a 4-3 nickel, and you run that more than you run a true 4-3. You absolutely do. That's the game necessitates it. And a lot of times it might be a bigger nickel where instead of having an extra corner on the field, maybe you have an extra safety on the field. And it depends on the coordinator, it depends on your system, it depends on the versatility of the guys that you have on the field and how you move them around.
The game plan of the team that you're playing against. But so anyways, I bring that up to say it seems like with these draft picks that they've made, right? They went for athleticism. Because Josh Paschal is an athletic defensive lineman from all accounts, right? Edge rusher. I know that you say he
lacks a little agility, and that's what it concerns me. But he's fast for his size.
But he also. I know that you're a data guy, but when you get locked onto players, you tend to also speak about intangibles that are not measurable. And by all accounts, he has a number of those intangibles, right? 3-time captain at Kentucky, which is the first in their history, like a leadership kind of guy, and can play multiple spots along that defensive front. So when we talk about Paschal, it's not necessarily similar to what you were thinking, but what I want to see him do is in that 3 technique on the defensive line, right? Between that guard and that tackle, in that 3 technique, playing on Hutchinson's side is the way that I see this playing itself out because Hutch is usually a 9 technique end. He's that wide end that likes to get upfield.
Well, it depends on what front we're in, of course.
But he typically played a 9 technique at Michigan, that outside edge.
He stood up at times too. It depends on the front.
But anyways, you get where I'm going with it.
Of course.
My expectation for Paschal is to really become that guy on Hutchinson's side, playing more interior to allow that side of our defensive line to wreak havoc. Because then you've got 2 guys pretty athletic that need to be handled, which is going to either free up a linebacker or somebody else, or it's going to free up one of those 2 guys. And I think that those 2 guys working in tandem together can have a pretty impactful start to their NFL career if they're utilized correctly, as we've discussed, and if they buy into the system, which it seems like the two guys are character guys and Dan Campbell type guys that should be able to do that. Now, Kerby Joseph, I want to see him grow into that role like you talked. You have high expectations for him. I'm kind of more of a wait and see, but we definitely need help on that back end, and I want to see him challenge for a starting spot or become that fifth defensive back that we put on the field if we're running a 4-2-5, depending on scheme, so on and so forth.
Man on a mission, I'ma get it. You know I be on a